Thanks for joining us for our Trade Show Guy Exhibits webinar based on one of the steps in the recent book, Trade Show Success, 14 Proven Steps to Take Your Trade Show Marketing to the Next Level. That's been out not quite a year. It's a lot of fun. I still give it away to potential clients, and who end up becoming clients is always a fun thing. So the step in that book is step 11, becoming the Zen master of stats and records. Oh, by the way, just found out this morning, our next webinar next month, we'll have a discussion about using VR or virtual reality at a trade show. It was passed on to me that one of the folks I'm working with saw that at a trade show in Baltimore last month at several booths and experimented with it once. And so it's a up and coming thing. People are using VR, virtual reality with the goggles and everything inside a trade show booth. It's becoming popular, and I made some calls. There's a lot to figure out if you're going to put that in your booth. So I made arrangements to speak to a guy, a pro from the VR world, who will share with us how it all works. That webinar currently set for November 8th. Yes, I know that's election day. That's what we have that morning here in the U.S. Trade Show Guy Exhibits is a full-service trade show company based in Salem, Oregon. We work with great strategic partners to provide the best in trade show booth service, materials, accessories, full design and custom fabrication, installation and dismantle, shipping, and so on. And by the way, as I've done the last couple of webinars, I'm going to be giving away a copy of my paperback book at the end of today's webinar. Stick around. If you're with us at the end, I'll pick a viewer at random and send you a copy. Don't worry, webinar is not going to be that long. It's probably 20 minutes or so. So let's get started. So record keeping is one of those things that most of us wish we didn't have to do. It's tedious. It's like, if you're an accountant, you love this sort of thing because you're really into the numbers and keeping things. But it's something we really should do. So how much should we keep? What should we keep? Where's the best place to keep it, and why? Let's answer the why first. There are many reasons to save as many records as you can. If you're in a marketing department that has at least a handful of people in it, or if you as a single marketing manager coordinate and collaborate with other folks in the company, it becomes important to keep records so that everyone knows who does what, where information is held, and how to find it. The purpose is, twofold, maybe threefold. First off, you want to track trends from year to year and find records showing that what you did last time for your electrical layout, drayage costs, so on and so forth, how many visitors you had, what your ROI was, so you can show if the your appearance at the trade show is on the upward trend, the downward trend, whether it's flat. Those types of things are very important. If you say, I had 2,500 visitors last year, and this year I had 2,600, that's a bit of an upward bump, although you may be wishing for more. So that's number one thing. Number two, second reason is that the process enables the rest of the team to access records when a question comes up. This has happened to me before. I've gotten a call. Hey, we're on the trade show floor trying to set up a large fabric wall. For some reason, there's no setup instructions. And, the call's from a guy 3,000 miles away. So you think, hey, no worries. Just pull up the file from the archives or email it to them. And within a moment or two, you save the day because you know where the information is. And you're able to access it or pass it along. And chances are, if they were aware of where it would be, they wouldn't have to call you. They would just access it, and that would be. So record keeping for trade show marketing is often about saving the day, which saves your bacon, saves your job, and can make you look like a hero for just kind of thing. So this brings us to the third reason to keep records, and that is institutional continuity. Chances are you won't be in your current job until you retire. And even if you are, someone at some time will take over your position. And if you leave your successor a thorough record of everything that's been done at the shows for the past several years, guess what? People will remember that about you because you were so thorough. Your praises will be sung. Long time. You will be remembered as a pretty awesome person. Not only that, your leadership will encourage your successors, likewise, to keep the same kind of records. Now, record keeping also brings up the issue of increasing the knowledge base of your team. The more your marketing team and booth staff know about the company's trade show marketing, the better informed they'll be on and off the trade show floor, and the more successful your trade show marketing efforts will likely be. As trade show marketing director, your challenge is to capture and archive everything you can, organize it in a way that you and your team can easily find specific items. Also, a great way to be ahead of your competitors. You just kind of know things a little, you intuitively grasp things that your competitors might not know because you're keeping better records than them. So what do you keep in all this? Well, we've gone over why to keep records and what to keep. Comes the question of how to keep them. At the outset, you want to make lists of the products and services that are promoted at each show, along with the notes about the graphics that are used. So you've got lots of things, I've just got a lot of lists here. So show manuals, products promoted, booth sizes, booth numbers, electrical layouts, booth plans, a record of your trade show booth staff. If you have any feedback from the show in debriefings, keep those. Whatever leads you get from show to show, the literature you've given away, how many copies you've given away. If you do it electronically, how many downloads you get, goals and objectives of each show. Did you meet those goals? Did you miss those goals? What if you had an unusually good outcome that surprised you? Make a note of that, and you can maybe incorporate that idea into some future show. Of course, you want to keep record of product sales if you are actually selling at a show. Other exhibit items. So you want to know what graphic sizes your booth has, and when they were last replaced, what shape they're in, who's your graphic designer, how do you get a hold of them, what's the best way, contact information, etc. What's the booth space rental cost? What did it cost 5 years ago versus what it costs now? You can kind of see the trends in inflation of those things. Carpet rental costs, cost of setup, cost of any upgrades, and when you've done those upgrades, what is the cost of a rental booth and related graphics if you do those types of things. If you have an in-booth demonstration, who's your presenter? How was he? Was he good? She good? Number of presentations, number of guests at each presentation, number of leads you got from each presentation, overall leads generated by presentations, even how your staff did at those particular demos. Were they able to actively talk to people as soon as the demo is over to get contact information and find those people that are very interested in your product or service? If you're doing demonstrations and giveaways, how many demos did you give? What type of demos were they? You don't always have to have a presenter. You can do a demo on an iPad or something like that, or maybe it's a hands-on demo. So the type of number of giveaways and samples you have as well, that's always a good thing. Logistics, it's great to know what kind of logistics you are involved with each show, because this is one of those things that a lot of people go, let's leave that to the other guy. But how much does it cost to ship things? So what's the drayage cost? Who's your shipper? What's the contact information? How did they do? Do you need to find someone else that's better? Or are these guys the best that you got? Rental furniture, what's that cost? Carpet, electrical costs. Who's your I&D company? Who gets involved in your installation and dismantle? Did they do a good job? And what did it cost? And every time, by the way, you do a new show, it's always worth getting another quote, because the prices will vary on all of this stuff. So if you know what you paid last time, and let's say you were quoted, just round numbers, $10,000 for a setup, but you ended up paying $12,000, maybe next time around you get someone else and see if they can stick close to the budget as well, their proposed, their quote. Number of demos, type of demos, types. See, I think I hit the wrong button there. Let's move on to your exhibit house. What about the contact information there? What resources does that company have or through them? If they have a designer, what's the hourly cost? If you have to have some work done, what's the shop labor? If you're having something custom done, what's the cost of all this? What are their capabilities? At the show, of course, you want to keep track of all of the booth staffers. What are the schedules? Did they do training? What was that training? When was that training? What are the responsibilities and what are the job descriptions? And do you have a show plan for the staffers so they know exactly what to do through all of that? Did you have client meetings and how did those turn out? Make notes of those. Entertainment costs. If you're wining and dining some clients or potential clients, keep track of all this. Records are very important. What type of lead generation system and how effective was it? And again, of course, what sales resulted from those leads? That's always very important. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. At the show, what about your competitors' booths? Take photos if you can. What booth size did your biggest competitor have? Are there any up-and-coming competitors? Can you take a snapshot of theirs? What location did they have? What products they promoted? And take a quick assessment also. I think it's important to do a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, strengths and weaknesses of competitors' exhibits and what their products are, so that you can compare them and make note of that, because people will put their cutting-edge products at trade shows. That's what they're doing. It's usually, especially an industry trade show, they're doing that because this stuff often is not in the public view yet, or will soon be in the public view, or just got in the public view, so the public isn't really aware of it, but they want to make their dealers and distributors and co-workers and things like that aware of it. So as a competitor, you should be aware of that too. Do you take a visitor count at your booth? It's not a bad idea. I know that's a tough thing to ask people to do, especially if you have an understaffed booth or you don't have enough. But if you can count, let's say hourly, you have someone just kind of mentally say, okay, we had 25 people come this hour. Someone else takes, you write that down, make a note of it. So at the end of the day, you go, we had 475 people. And at the end of 3 days, you say you have 1,500 people. So those types of numbers are very important as you go on. Did you do a staff debriefing at the end of a show or at the beginning of a day, asking about what happened the day before? Make notes of those and keep those. If you get comments or questions from visitors, if you get complaints, actually I love complaints because it lets you know that there's an issue and it helps you fix those issues if people complain about something. So make a note of all of those things, very, very important. What about how to keep those records? Well, it's probably pretty easy to create a 3-ring binder for each show or each year of shows. It's also a good idea to keep digital copies of everything. 3-ring binders are cool. I like them. I got a lot of them, but it's kind of old-fashioned. And if you put them in the clouds, everyone can access them. So there are any number of cloud-based services that can be used company-wide to make digital files accessible anywhere. Microsoft Cloud, iCloud, Dropbox, and more. I'm not going to go into the details, but as you move towards compiling records and making them accessible anywhere at any time, sit down with the company's IT person to determine what will work best for you. But I would say if you're still in the paper world, you really should move into the cloud. I have an app on my phone that lets me take a picture of something, saves it as a digital PDF, and uploads it automatically to Dropbox. And that's a great way to keep something. So if it ever gets lost, it's not really lost. It's there. I think that's a great thing to do. Now, let's talk about ROI. ROI is kind of the end, the end all be all, the end game for all of this sort of stuff. Beyond keeping records for easy access, you can use the detailed financial information to give you a pretty good sense of the ROI, return on investment, that your trade show marketing is giving you. I say pretty good because numbers may change over time given the longevity that you're after to get out of a good trade show experience. You may have something that you really won't get any sales from for 6 months, a year, maybe a year and a half after you meet someone, or even longer. Someone will remember you, and because the product you sell may not be a very short sales cycle, it's a long sales cycle, you may actually make a sale from something months or years after the actual show. So to determine trade show ROI, first calculate how much you spent on the show. This includes the cost of your booth, as well as expenses related to client parties, flights, travel, transportation, rental cars, hotels, accommodations, food, booth staff salaries, show services, and so forth. If, for example, round numbers again because it's easy to talk about numbers, your total you spend is $100,000, that's the number you start with. It could be argued, I suppose, that booth staff salary should be left out of that calculation, because if your company were not at the show, they'd still be in the office earning that salary. And that's probably a valid argument. But either way, here's what you do. You have your ROI equals the gross profit minus that $100,000 you spent divided by $100,000. So your gross profit comes from sales booked directly from event leads. If you hadn't been there, you wouldn't have met those folks, and you wouldn't likely be selling to them as a result. So the resulting gross profit, if it's resulting gross profit is higher than your total investment, you can point to a positive return on investment. The question then becomes, did you generate enough profit from this show to justify going back in the future? Or the other idea is, if you've got a negative ROI, is it worth even going to the show at all? So these are good numbers to have, and if you keep good records, you'll have those numbers. Once you determine the exact amount spent on the event, You will then determine the leads and sales that were generated as a result of participating in the trade show. Whether you use your internal sales tracking or input all the leads into a tool such as Salesforce, your task is to track the amount of sales generated as a result of the new content. As I mentioned, it may be that your product is the type that doesn't realize sales for months or perhaps years, yet the money will eventually arrive. So you might want to actually figure out an ROI after 6 months and after a year on the same show. So you're recalculating. It could be that the ROI is improving over time from one show because you're still getting results that are still coming in. That didn't come in immediately or didn't come in the first 3 or 4 months. All right. I do have a book to give away. Let me go over to my, let's see, where did my, there we go. All right, so we can look at who's viewing. I'm going to pick one of those people and I will email you. And I've got Samir as one of our viewers, and I'm going to email you and I'll get your address from you and I'll send this book out to you. I do appreciate you watching this particular episode of the Trade Show Guy webinars. You can, if you're signed up for this one, by the way, you'll get notified for future ones. That's just kind of the way we have it set up. The next one I mentioned is on November 8th, and we'll talk about virtual reality, which will be a lot of fun because that's a fun topic. So I believe that wraps up our quick little webinar on record keeping. Let me go look over here and see if anyone has a question. I do not see any. And here's how to get a hold of me. My email address there, the direct phone line. You can follow me on Twitter. You can find out more about our services at TradeshowGuyExhibits.com. You can go to the blog at TradeshowGuyBlog.com. And if you didn't win the book, you can go to TradeshowSuccessBook.com and download a free digital copy that opts you into our newsletter. So let me go see, and if we can get the camera back on, because it was just having a difficult time doing all that. So let's see. Do that. Camera not happening. Camera not happening. I push that button. Does that bring it on? I see it. Do you see it? All right. This will be up on our blog here, not in the not too distant future, like later this afternoon or perhaps tomorrow. But again, I appreciate you coming by and joining us for Trade Show Guy webinar on record keeping. Our next one is going to be on virtual reality. Thanks again.